I used to wake up each morning with a strange hollowness in my chest. From the outside, it looked like I had everything figured out: a stable job at a good company, a decent apartment in the city, a routine that kept me busy. But inside, I felt adrift at sea, with no land in sight. I went through the motions: coffee, commute, work, emails, meetings, then back home to take out dinner and a flickering television. Day after day looped the same, and I began to wonder if this was all life would ever be. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, that I was meant to be doing something more meaningful. Late at night, I would lie awake and question the point of it all. I had followed the script laid out for me: study hard, get a good job, be responsible. Yet here I was in my late 20s, feeling more lost than ever. The success I was supposed to feel, the sense of achievement and direction, wasn't there. Instead, there was a quiet desperation. I remember one night, the city lights blinking through my window, as I whispered into the darkness, "What am I doing with my life?" My words fell flat in the silence, and no answer came back. I felt almost foolish for asking. After all, I was surviving fine, wasn't I? Who was I to yearn for something as grand as a purpose? In the weeks that followed, that restlessness only grew. I started noticing people around me who seemed to move with passion and conviction. One colleague came to work excited to talk about the furniture he built on weekends, eyes alight as he described sanding and carving wood. One evening, I paused to listen to a street violinist in the subway station playing with such soul that he seemed lost in his own world. Both the craftsman and the musician had something that gave them joy beyond their daily obligations. I felt a pang of envy, not for what they were doing specifically, but for the evident passion and purpose that drove them. It highlighted how numb I had become. I realized I had been living on autopilot, checking off boxes but never checking in with my own heart. I couldn't remember the last time I felt excited or deeply absorbed in something. As a child, I used to love drawing, spending hours sketching imaginary worlds. But somewhere along the way, I let that part of me slip away. The realization hit me that I didn't really know myself beyond the roles I filled: employee, friend, dutiful son. I had lost touch with the things that used to bring me alive. That thought frightened me, but it also propelled me. I decided I needed to step away and search for what I was missing. So I did something out of character. I requested a week off from work with no plan beyond getting some distance. I took a train to a small coastal town I remembered fondly from childhood. I arrived in the off-season, the place quiet and draped in winter's hush. I rented a tiny room in a seaside inn. Each morning I woke to the sound of waves and the cries of seagulls. Instead of an alarm and a flurry of emails, my day began with a walk along the empty beach. The cold sand under my feet and salt air on my face made me feel awake in a way coffee never could. I watched the sun rise slowly, painting the sky in pastels of pink and orange, and tried to recall the last time I'd watched a sunrise. I couldn't remember. There was a peaceful solitude in those dawn moments. Just me, the endless ocean, and the rhythmic crash of waves. It felt like the world had reset itself, and I was witnessing a new beginning each day. With the usual noise of life stripped away, I had space to think and to feel. I carried a notebook and jotted down stray thoughts, memories, questions, dreams long forgotten. One windy afternoon, I wrote at the top of a page, "What do you really want?" I stared at that question, letting it echo in my mind. The familiar answers surfaced first: a promotion, a nicer apartment, but I pushed those aside. They weren't coming from my heart. Digging deeper, I wrote, "I want to feel like what I do matters. I want to wake up with a sense of meaning, knowing I'm contributing something good to the world, even in a small way." Writing that down felt like uncovering a truth buried inside me. That evening, I wandered into a tiny bookstore on the town's main street. The owner, an old man with kind eyes, struck up a conversation. Perhaps because I was a stranger and we were surrounded by the comfort of books, I admitted to him that I felt lost, that I was searching for direction. He nodded as if he understood. He told me he had once been a lawyer in the big city, living the high-stress life he thought he was supposed to. But in his 50s, he left it behind to open this little bookshop by the sea. He said he'd traded the big paycheck for the simple joy of sharing stories and knowledge with others. He would help a child find a book that sparked their imagination or host a poetry night for the locals. It wasn't grand in the world's eyes, he admitted, but it meant something to him. And that was enough. His story resonated deeply with me. Purpose, I realized, didn't have to be loud or showy. It could be quiet and humble, yet still profoundly meaningful if it aligned with what mattered to you. Back in my room that night, I reflected on what he'd said. I made a list of the things I cared about most: creativity, helping others, learning, connecting with people. These were values and passions I had neglected. Then I brainstormed ways to incorporate them into my life. Some ideas were modest, like volunteering or taking an art class, and some were bigger, like eventually shifting careers. I didn't expect to figure everything out in 1 week, but I had begun to illuminate a path. By the end of that coastal week, something in me had shifted. I didn't have a perfect roadmap, but I had a sense of direction. I understood that purpose wasn't a single epiphany or a destination. It was a guiding star, something to navigate by, continuously. It could evolve over time, but it needed to be rooted in what truly mattered to me. I returned to the city feeling lighter and quietly determined to make changes. I didn't quit my job immediately or upend my life overnight. Instead, I started with small steps. I found a local community center and began volunteering on weekends, helping kids with art projects. I'll never forget one afternoon, sitting on the floor with a dozen energetic children, paint and paper everywhere. A little girl proudly held up a wild, colorful painting she'd made. Her eyes shone as I told her it was beautiful, and she grinned, gap-toothed and radiant. In that moment, I felt a spark of joy, the kind that comes from being part of something meaningful, however small. For those hours, I hadn't thought about work or my phone at all. I was simply there, present and useful in a way that aligned with my heart. I also dusted off my old sketchbook at home. At first, putting pencil to paper felt awkward after so many years. My lines were shaky, my shading clumsy, but I didn't care. It felt good just to create again. It was like reopening a long-locked door to a room full of sunlight. In the quiet of my evenings, I sketched scenes from the beach, faces of imaginary people, abstract shapes that mirrored my emotions. It calmed me and excited me at once. Eventually, I started sharing some drawings online and connected with fellow hobbyists. It felt like I was reclaiming a piece of myself that I had tucked away. These changes began to color the rest of my life. Even at my job, I felt less trapped, knowing I was working toward a transition. I talked to mentors and researched careers that would align better with my values. After a few months, an opportunity came, and I took the leap. A position at a non-profit, focused on education, a cause I truly cared about. I remember riding the elevator down on my last day in the corporate office, heart pounding. I was nervous, yes, but also alive with anticipation. I was finally steering my life instead of drifting. Not every day is perfect now, and I'm still finding my way. But there's a world of difference in how I feel. I learned that purpose isn't something that arrives one day with fanfare. It's something you build gradually, by listening to your inner values and pursuing them. It often requires stepping away from the noise and having the courage to try something new, to be a beginner again in the pursuit of what matters. These days, I wake up not with a hollow feeling, but with a subtle sense of anticipation. I know I'm spending my time on things that mean something to me. whether it's my work helping students, a Saturday morning at the community center, or even the next sketch I plan to draw. When I think back to that night, I ask the darkness, what am I doing with my life? I feel gratitude for the journey that question sparked. I was lost, but that longing led me to search, and eventually to change. I carry with me the memory of quiet mornings on the beach, and the bookstore owner's gentle wisdom. Whenever I start to feel adrift again, I recall those simple questions I wrote in my notebook. What do I care about, and how can I live that today, even in a small way? The answers guide me like a lighthouse through fog. In following them, I found the sense of meaning I was missing. In discovering my purpose, I discovered a richer life. It's not that I have it all figured out, far from it. But now I'm an active participant in my own story, rather than a passive observer. Each day feels like it has potential, even if just in small moments, to connect with something or someone in a way that matters. I know there will be challenges and doubts, but I feel ready to face them. Because I'm not just living by default anymore, I'm living with purpose, on purpose. And that has made all the difference.